Hello everyone, my name is Josh and welcome to part 2 of my Oliver Twist movie review. And today, and this is for Musical Mondays by the way, is completely different from Whimsical and Interesting Musings, but I'd love to do more videos. I'm going to be doing more videos later on today, but for now, let's get back to the action on Oliver. Oliver sings. I just want to bring up before I continue with the summary, the breaking down of the plot from bit to bit. I really kind of noticed that the way the workhouse works, especially among the other children, you're very much kind of expendable, and the way the characters are even hinted at it with the Oliver number in that particular scene. Um, a lot of the people who you'd think would be friends with Oliver actually really kind of look out for him. They're not. I mean, a lot of the people in this particular workhouse are only looking out for number one, which is themselves, and making sure they survive and that they're as proactive as possible and productive as possible. So the fact that they all kind of turn on Oliver really is kind of a very dark moment, even though it is kind of a very kind of chirpy song and it's very kind of, upbeat. It still is really horrible because it's basically having this poor child who didn't even have a say on whether or not he wanted to ask for more. He probably didn't even want to ask for more, even though he probably wanted to. He just drew the short straw. So the fact that that happened and he has to now do this thing where he's been very horribly punished, it really kind of adds a certain level of tragedy and very kind of almost kind of very harsh and very kind of almost no man's land kind of feel to the world of Dickens. So in regards to actually adapting this sort of story for a musical, it actually kind of works because it really kind of embodies the very harsher elements of a lot of Dickens's work, where a lot of the characters are cruel and very heartless. There's often, upper class characters who are indulging these great feasts whilst they're literally entertaining orphans and homeless people and things like that. So it really kind of adds that level of darkness and kind of almost this hypocritical depravity to the entirety of proceedings. And the entirety of books like, Christmas Carol are basically a critique on the poor and how, the upper classes tend to take advantage of the poor, how, the upper classes don't want to see the darker aspects of poverty in the same way that, a lot of us do. I mean, we see a lot of videos for charity organisations and things like that, and we are sad and we are kind of, sympathetic, but it's kind of very telling of a lot of these sorts of stories that when you're an upper class person, you like to indulge in feasts every day, you don't tend to your first world problems are more focused on who am I gonna, ask my daughter to wed so that we can get further money and have these alliances for all these great, business ventures and things like that. You're mostly focused on stuff like that, like what percentage is a plot of land in Scotland or whatever. You're thinking about that stuff. You're not thinking about, what's your next meal going to be? How much is it going to cost? Who am I going to have to feed and who am I going to have to let starve? Which is a really horrible Sophie's Choice kind of situation. So I like the fact that the musical actually did a very good job of showing the darkness of that kind of environment through this song. And it's actually a really good song overall. But moving on with the plot, he sings Where Is Love when he's in the basement of the Undertakers, and he's basically saying this because he feels like he has no real family, he has no real friends either. He literally lives in a workhouse where anything goes. Like, you look out for yourself, you don't, look out for anybody else. And if you do look out for anybody else, on your head be it, because they're not going to do the same for you, kind of thing. So it's a very dark world, and he's also singing about his mum, because there is a little moment in the song where he goes, "Where is she? Who when I close my eyes, I see," and that's a really nice line because it basically tells you that he is constantly thinking of his mother and this phantom figure in his life who literally, she didn't abandon him. In the book, it's made particularly clear that she died in childbirth. She was also working in the workhouse. She was working in the workhouse since she was 12. And or no, actually, I tell a lie. Excuse me, I do beg your pardon. She actually she came to the workhouse. She was heavily pregnant. She was told to work there for a few days, and when she finally gave birth, when she was finally ready to give birth, she gave birth to the child. But sadly, she didn't make it. The child survived, but she didn't make it. and the workhouse took Oliver in, and he became one of the workhouse children. Hence why he's there from birth. So we don't know the full story of what happened there, but as the story goes on, especially in the book, we get more insight into who Oliver's mother was and why she felt she needed to go to the workhouse, and why she felt so desperate and she felt so alone. And he leaves the basement through a window, through a little latch in the window, and he makes his way to London. And he meets Dodger, and they have a very nice conversation about, meeting up and how do you like London. He goes, "Oh, I've never been here before. I've come to London to get my fortune, to seek my fortune," things like that. And he goes, "Oh yeah, you're not running away from the beat, is it? Or the beat," and things like that. And he goes, "What's a beat?" And he goes, "You don't tell me what you don't know what beat is." And he goes, "It's the bird's mouth, isn't it?" And it's just so sweet, their exchange. Like I love Oliver and Dodger's relationship in this film, and I love it in the book as well. I mean, I just really love how they're constantly, they've got each other's back, and I really do love that. It's much more better than the Disney version where Oliver's a kitten, and even though I love Oliver, do kind of like a version of Oliver with animals, I felt like, making one a cat and one a dog just feels very weird to me, but it's kind of cute as well. I'm not saying I don't like it, but I just think it's very weird just having that kind of setup. But it's very cute and adorable as well, and there are moments where dogs and cats do get on very well, but I digress. Then it just jumps into the song. Dodger introduces himself. He calls himself the Artful Dodger, and he gets into the song, "Consider yourself at home, consider yourself one of the family. I've taken to you so strong. It's clear we're going to get along." It's wonderful. It's really great, and it's this big musical set piece. It starts off very slowly, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, until by the end you see an entire street. Like, not just an entire street, an entire city literally singing this song. And everyone's singing. The poor, the destitute, homeless, the wealthy, the kind of mildly wealthy to the exceptionally wealthy. They're all singing along to this song. And it's so wonderful to see that when you get these really big crowds of musical numbers, it really does give you that sense of energy. And it really makes you think, that must have been fun to film. That must have been really great to film. But it must have been a nightmare to choreograph. It must have been a nightmare to get all this stuff ready. Like all the stuff behind the scenes that we all take for granted in musicals, it takes ages to do. And as someone who's literally been in musicals at school and further along in college and things like that, it's very hard to kind of, get that stuff right. So the fact that they're able to do that and do it in such a great, grand way, it really kind of gives you this great sense of how infectious the Artful Dodger's influence is. Like, as soon as they're literally have met, they're literally best friends right off the bat, and it's really incredible. So Oliver, after that wonderful musical number, Oliver and the Artful Dodger go back to Fagin's, and they meet an entire group of other children who are pickpockets. And he meets Fagin, who is played by Ron Moody, who's a great actor overall. He kind of, was an actor all the way up until the end. He was even in EastEnders at one point, I think. Don't quote me on that, though. I might be wrong, completely wrong. But yeah, I think he's been in the acting game for ages, and he sadly passed away. But yeah, he really is a good actor. Most fans of the show, The Animals of Farthing Wood, know that he does a majority of the voices. He does the voice of Badger more prominently, but he is a great actor, and of course he plays Fagin like a really lovable arsehole. He's like Del Boy Trotter in the sense that he's a bit of a douche, but you can tell that he is, well, not a douche, but he is this kind of, he is this very kind of, he's mostly a trickster, isn't he, Del Boy? And he kind of likes playing the trickster, he likes playing the con artist. But deep down, he's a really nice guy. He's got a heart of gold, and he just really he has this tremendous love for his family, especially his brother, and later on his wife and his son. So you really do get that sense of a real sense of a lovely guy, and it's kind of the same thing with Ron Moody's Fagin. He isn't a very nice guy. He would be considered a villain, but he is just so likable. He adds such a charm to the character that you really just kind of think his charm and his charisma is just so infectious in the scene, especially in the song "You Got a Pick a Pocket or Two." In this life, one thing counts. In the bank, large amounts. I'm afraid these don't grow on trees. You gotta pick a pocket or two. You gotta pick a pocket or two, boys. You gotta pick a pocket or two. So good. I love it. Oh, so wonderful. Especially his acting. Like, there's even a scene where he pretends to be an old man, and they're trying to mug him. Essentially, that's just such a great sequence, and I love the playfulness. I love how he can just make the children laugh. Whenever he twirls that watch and it just kind of goes limp as he's putting it in his pocket, that always gets a huge laugh out of the kids, and I always wondered why. Like, it's so goofy the way he does it, but the way he does it kind of almost gets this really kind of playful reaction out of the kids, and I love that, especially when characters are reacting to the musical set pieces. It's just such a fun time to watch, and yeah, Fagin is a bit of a villain, but he is this guy who really cares for his boys. Or whenever he has Oliver in trouble, he does start off thinking, "I'll get to that," but there's a moment where Fagin leaves for the night. The kids are getting to bed, and he decides to go out and get some loot from a guy called Bill Sykes, who used to be his apprentice. And he's going there, and he goes to this little tavern that's under the bridge, and it's very nice. He's eating chestnuts, and he's waiting for Bill. And then we hear the name Nancy being called, and one of her friends goes up when Bill arrives. Nancy's back. He's here, Nancy, and that's a really good moment. But also, what's really great about this scene is it shows you how intimidating Bill Sykes is. He's played by Oliver Reed, who is the nephew of the director of this film, Carol Reed. And the way he's introduced is just so incredible. He's just a silhouette when he first appears, but he just kind of very slowly walks up, and he very wisely doesn't talk at all during either this sequence where he's putting the loot into Fagin's bag and Fagin leaves, or when the Small Pleasures number that Nancy sings happens. He very wisely stays silent throughout. And Bill is very intimidating. He doesn't say very much. Like I said, he's just putting the loot in the bag, and he's putting it very slowly. And Ron Moody as Fagin is just really impressed. Like, he's just saying, "Well done, Bill, all one job," and things like that. And there's even a moment where he tries to pull a fast one, he tries to leave without paying him, and Fagin or Bill just clicks his fingers and says, "Oi, you need to pay me," kind of thing. And he goes, "Bill, carry cash at summer night? Like, all these thieves and robbers working in dark alleyways, I wouldn't dare." And I love that. I mean, I love Ron Moody's character as Fagin. Like, I really do love how he makes him. He is a villain, but he is also really lovable at the same time. Like, he's just this really kind of... He's a great example of a grey area character. Like, he's this character who does terrible things, but he does have a heart of gold, especially for his pickpockets and for Oliver especially. And that's way different to the way he is in the book. So that's great. But what's really great is that Oliver Reed doesn't say very much in this sequence. He just basically, just does what he does. And he has a very kind of stern look on his face, like a very kind of placid, but very kind of almost shady kind of expression on his face. And it really kind of adds a certain level of intimidation to him. Then we have the Small Pleasures sequence, which is the song Nancy sings as she's giving Bill his supper. And this entire sequence is just wonderful because it shows you how much Nancy is just this very carefree, very loving life kind of spirit. Like, she knows she wasn't made to be a maid or, work in, homes or workhouses, but she probably was working in workhouses until she met Fagin. So you really do get this degree of she's just happy with the life that she's chosen. Yes, she didn't choose it, but she's happy with it. She's happy, just working on the street, picking pockets and doing all these other things. And she's happy with the simple, small pleasures that she's got, because the fact that she's able to get this job at this tavern and she's able to pay for both her and Bill's rooms really goes to show that she really does love her husband. and the fact that she's just willing to do anything. I mean, he treats her very horribly throughout the course of the film, even in the small pleasure sequence where you're supposed to see how in love she is with this guy. He really does show that he really doesn't give a shit. Like, he sees, you know, her bring food to him and ale and things like that, but all he wants is the bottle. There's even a moment where he clicks his fingers and he says, "Oh, I want that bottle." He doesn't actually say it, but he gestures to do it. I just think that's a guy who you should dump right away, love. Like, seriously, that's a guy who isn't looking for your best interests at heart, which is kind of interesting because in the television show Dickensian, there's a scene where it's implied that Jacob Marley raped Nancy, and Bill is not happy about it. Like, maybe it's because, you know, he considers Nancy his property, or whether he genuinely cares for Nancy. You don't really know, but I really like the fact that, you know, Bill actually has that moment where he actually really does care about her. But at the same time, I don't think he does. I think he just sees Nancy as his property, someone to control. But it can go either way, and I think it's the same here, where he doesn't look like he's really all that attentive and all that loving. Like, he says things like, there's even this moment later on in the scene where she says, "Bill, you do love me, don't you?" And he goes, "Of course I do. I live with you, don't I?" And things like that. And it makes you think, like, yeah, she smiles and she's happy in the moment. But if you were really to pause and think about it for a moment, like, I bet he was just saying that just to make sure that she goes away and she doesn't disturb his sleep. It's that kind of thing. I really did feel sorry for her because she has such a smile on her face when she hears that. Like she's so happy that this guy, this really kind of intimidating looking guy, met her and fell in love with her, and it really just kind of it makes you feel sad in these very small ways. But I love that sadness, and I love how the song "As Long as He Needs Me" is always playing in instrumental during these sequences, because it shows that even though he's a villain and he does some terrible things, she's still going to stand by him like a wife should do, in her eyes anyway. And that I really kind of like, is even though he's an absolute villain and he's horrible, she really does care about him a lot. And I'm really kind of blabbering a lot in these reviews. I'm really sorry about this, but I'm going to have to cut this short again and actually do part 3 because it's actually quite a long time. So yeah, this is part 3 of my review of Oliver, and if you like this video, please give it a like, and if you want to get in touch and let me know what other musicals you'd like me to do, whether it's musical specials from TV shows and things like that, or whether it's a film or a video game, please leave a suggestion down in the comments. I'd love to hear your feedback. And how do you think I'm doing on these reviews? Do you like these Musical Mondays reviews and how I'm doing it, or do you think it needs some work? Like, I'd really love to hear your feedback on this. So I hope you're all having a very good day, and this is Josh with Whimsical Industry Musings. Stay tuned for part 3. Bye.